Hello and welcome to Gupta's webinar on integrating SQLBase with Visual Studio using the new DDEX driver. This is your host Martin Tietz. Before we get started, I want to review a few things about Gupta Technologies. We are known for being the first to deliver a relational database in the Unix and Windows environment. Since then, we have delivered hundreds of new database versions for Windows, Linux, and Unix platforms, continuously enhancing SQLBase with modern features and tools like, for example, the SQLBase Command Center and now the new DDEX driver. We do encourage questions on the webinar, and the way you do so is that you use the Q&A button on your WebEx toolbar. It is the button with the question mark. There's also a chat button, but it makes it easier for Dennis and I to look in one panel for the questions to make sure we address all of them.
With that, I'd like to introduce your webinar speaker today, which is Dennis Norgard, our manager of SQLBase development. Dennis is more than 25 years with Gupta Technologies and has a lot of experience with SQLBase, so you can ask him the really hard questions, I would guess. He has been the 5th employee with Gupta Technologies way back in 1985. With that, I'd like to pass over control to Dennis for this webinar, including demonstration of the DDEX driver. Okay, Dennis, you should be the presenter.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Let's see if I can get this to work. Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dennis Norgard. I'm the manager of database development at Gupta Technologies. Today, I'm going to talk about SQLBase 11.7 and Visual Studio integration. So with this, with Service Pack 1, we are releasing our SQLBase and Visual Studio integration, and we decided to support Visual Studio 2010 and newer. With Visual Studio 2010, they changed how you can package your extensions, and Microsoft made it easier to support. So we decided most people would be with these versions of Visual Studio or newer. And when you install SQLBase, there are two main components involved in this. One is the .NET Data Provider, which is the interface between the application and the SQLBase server, and then there's the Visual Studio extension. So the .NET Data Provider is a single file deployment. The file is gupta.sqlbase.data.dll, and this is a fully managed component. So it's written in C#, so it works with both 32-bit and 64-bit applications. The Visual Studio extension has two parts to it. One is the extension package, the VisX file, and if you install Visual Studio after you've installed SQLBase, you'll find this VisX file in the installation directory, and you can install that plugin right from Visual Studio. And then we also have the provider itself. This is the piece of code, the DDEX.dll. This is the piece of code that Visual Studio invokes to access the Visual Studio features. So I'm just going to demonstrate some areas of the DDEX integration. Those of you who are familiar with Visual Studio are probably already experts in these areas, but this will show how we do integrate into Visual Studio and the extent of our integration. So I'll bring up the copy of the server and Visual Studio, and for this demonstration I'm using Visual Studio 2012. And the first thing on our list of things to demonstrate is the the data connection. This is the starting point of getting connected, so this is where we start. I bring up the Server Explorer and click on Connect to Database, and we are presented with this dialog box. We can, if we change the data source, you'll see that once the Gupta SQLBase DDEX installed, it should be one of your choices in the list. So we're using that, and the server I'm using is called Rabbit, and it has our island sample database. So if I enter Rabbit, because the server is running on the same machine, it will find the database. And obviously here we could put the account name. I'm just using our system administrator account. We still support a SQLini file, but these days I think it works better if you provide a connection string with all the parameters and not even use a SQLini file. So we have this advanced properties, which is really just a way to set the name value pairs. And if I set, say, the client name, you'll see that I entered it, and if I click on the connected string, it gets added in. And if I set isolation level to RC3, and it will also show up in here. And I could set the input message size to some number, come up here, and if I edited it up here, I can know that it's been removed from this down here. So anyway, this just allows you to see what you're using for your connection string. And of course, we can test our connection, and we're good. So now I have a connection to this database server. So this is basic, but we just covered the data connection, and now we'll demonstrate how we use the Server Explorer. Let's see, where'd it go? I'll bring this up. Okay, so we'll expand. This is a Server Explorer tab. I'll pin it here, and the properties are also important. So I'm going to pin those down here, and I'll expand this connection. You'll see these are the main objects of our database: tables, views, stored procedures, indexes, and foreign keys. And this is pretty much what you might expect. I can expand the tables into the columns, and as I click on columns, I get the properties are viewed below. You'll see that the budget year is a small int, and here we have shows department ID, and you'll see that it's a primary key for this table. And if I maybe just pick another table here, we have a contact table, and again we have a primary key, and the type is a char field with 18 characters. And then we have a foreign key, and by scrolling down we'll see that this key is a foreign key to some other table. So this is a simple way to see your tables and the columns that are represented within them. If we just sort of move on to views, in this sample database we only have one view. And as you know, a view is like a table, except that it's derived from computations or other tables. But like a table, we have the columns and we have the types. So as you're programming, you have easy access to the various column types of your views. You may want to know, well, what is this view comprised of? And right now, the only way I can show how we see it is to alter view. This may not be ideal, but this is what we have. And this would allow you to edit and save the view. But you can see that for total items, which is a small n, you can bring up the view, you can locate total items and total amount. You can see that this here is total items and this computation is total amount. So that's views. And if we look at stored procedures, we can right-click on it and open it. We are allowed to edit stored procedures. You can't debug them, but we can edit them. And you can add, a line, and you can see what you've changed. And when you exit, you can save it. If there's an error because it tries to recompile it, store it, it will save the file so if you bring it back up, you haven't lost your edits. Then we have indexes and foreign keys. Now, these are a little difficult to correlate to the right table because they're not up with the table itself. But it reflects the way they're stored in our database, where each column is a row in the indexes table. And you'll see that it reflects exactly what's in here. So the index comp ID is the first key item of company for the company ID table in the company table. And you can scroll through and see the different keys. Now, in this particular index, there are two columns in the key, and there's two records here. And just toggling back and forth, you can see that it's the table's inspection data, and the two columns are lot number and style ID. So this is just what we have right now. We'll consider moving these up into the tables so that we have columns and indexes, but right now this is where they are located. Foreign keys, again, these are records in the SQLBase table, and maybe a little difficult to correlate to the table, but information is here for recognizing that in the company table, there's a primary key, company underscore ID, and table contact has a foreign key, company underscore ID. And the same goes for, we have a department ID and the department, which is a primary key, and the employee table has a foreign key of department ID. So that's just a quick overview of the database objects. And if we go back to the tables, we can show that if you right-click, well, first, you can also create a table. You can create a table, and you can alter table, drop table, and you can retrieve data. So here I've retrieved the data for the contact, and you know, we can edit it. And as you edit it, the little pencil marker here shows that this table is being edited. The fields that have been modified are highlighted, and if I bring up the server window, you can see that when I click off this row, there's activity in the database that will have updated the table and committed the data. I'll see the commits up here somewhere. There's a commit for updating that data. So the nice thing about this is that you can view and edit your data, and you can go to the end of this table and add new rows as well. So this is the Explorer view. And if I go back to the slide here, we've covered the Server Explorer. I'll spend just a little bit of time here on the Query Designer. Let's see. Okay, so if I go back to my connection object here and expand it, I have my tables, and I can right-click and create a new query. And just for this demonstration, I'll pick the employee table. And you'll see here on the left, I have these windows. I'm going to close the output window. We have a diagram view. We have this grid for showing the columns that are involved in our query. We have the actual query itself, and then we'll have an output window down here. So if I select a few of these columns, I'm keeping it simple here, you'll see that as I select them, the views down here change. The query is being written, and the columns are being displayed. I can execute the query, and I see the output of the query down here. On this window here, I can say I want the first name to come before the last name, and I can drag it up. And you'll see that now we have the first name preceding the last name. On this window here, I can say I want to sort in ascending order. You can set the sort order, and the query is being updated by adding the order by to the query. And I can re-execute this query, and we'll see that it's sorted by first name. I don't have any duplicate first names in the small table, but it would be okay. So this is a very simple query, but if I want to add, say, the department table to this query, I can come over here, drag the department over, and it will automatically link them to either by the foreign key or maybe by two columns that have the same name. And now you can see how the query was modified as now it's an inner join. And SQLBase tends to use these fully qualified names, and we're talking about simplifying that down to just the part that it needs, but we haven't made that change yet. But if I add an alias for employee to E and say D for department, and click away, the Visual Studio will rewrite the query to make full use of those shorter names. And up here, I can show that you can remove the link, and you could change the link by associating the employee IDs. You'll see how the query shows now the employee ID is used instead of department ID. And go back to using the department ID. There's more you can do here by looking at the properties of this join. Since I've joined these two tables, maybe I should display the department name as well, and I'll re-execute the query. So you see that the department name has been added along with the columns from the employee table, and you can add a filter. So I want say all the departments that begin with the letter M. So I can add like departments start with letter M, and I can refresh, and you'll see that human resources is no longer being displayed. Also, you can see where the where clause was added to the query. So now we have, a query that we've designed, created in the query designer, and I can copy and paste this query into my application, and or there's other things you can do. If I've copied this into my clipboard, I'm just going to close it and do the same thing again. I'm going to say new query, but I'm not going to go through this process. I'm going to pretend like I've taken my query from my application, and I'm just pasting it into this window. And as I click away, it will fill in the other views for me, and I can execute it. So we have this view here as well. Since we're on, this one thing I didn't cover is on the Server Explorer window, I didn't show here that you can retrieve data from views as well. Just wanted to make sure I showed that. And on stored procedures, one thing I wanted to show here is we can open the procedure, we can execute the procedure, but we have not implemented the parameters yet. So that's on our list of things to do. So you can add data here, and you can try to execute it, but it won't change the table. So I just wanted to mention that. So anyway, this is the query designer, where you can copy and paste your queries into and out of this window. You can modify your query. You can change how your joins are linked together, and test it out. The Oracle join style is not supported in this. If you do the Oracle join, you'll get a syntax error on the query, but the ANSI joins seem to be okay. So now I've covered these three items, and I just want to do a quick, simple example of the data grid view to show that we are making good progress towards integrating fully into Visual Studio. And if I go back to, this time I'm going to create an application, create a project. It's just going to be a Windows form application. And I'll expand this form window a bit. And this time I'm going to click on the toolbox and drop the data grid view into the form. I'm going to choose a data source. It's a database, dataset, and use our Rabbit connection. And just click through. We're going to select the employee table and finish. So now we have an object dropped onto our form, and I can run this, and it comes up as a running application. I can customize this. I have the data grid view properties, and if I go down to some of the options here, I can fill out the window. I can auto size the cells. This is just general setting properties in Visual Studio, and go down to the collection here and edit what I see as last name, department ID. I don't need all these things. I simplify it down just a little bit. I'll keep extension. And get rid of that. So now I have a smaller set of columns, and I can just verify that we're making progress here. It's oh yeah, okay, it finally came up. So here I have a more pleasing view of the data grid view, and I can click on that. I can enable column reordering, and I can edit the columns. I can move the photo up, and yeah, just do this one more time. Okay, so it came up. And so this is a very simple use of connecting to SQLBase. I can sort my columns, and I can move first name in front of last name. And I've now demonstrated that I can use SQLBase with the data grid view. So those are some simple things that show how SQLBase is integrated into Visual Studio, and we have more to do. We are continuing to add more capability. We are fixing things as we learn more about the Visual Studio environment, and updates will be made available through Gupta's support. So that's it for now, and I'd like to know if you have any questions. I can turn this back over to you, Martin.
Yeah, I don't see any. Oh, one comment looks good. Not really a question. Let me switch to me. So favor.
So those of you using this will probably want some updates, because as we test various features, we find aggravating issues, and this is a brand new release, so we've fixed some important things already.
Here's a question, Dennis. Can you execute DDL?
I'm trying to find the questions here. Can I execute DDL? Is that what the question?
Yeah.
Like create table and drop table?
Like creating an indexes, for example. Yeah, and create table and stuff.
I don't think we can create an index, but we can alter table, create table, drop table. But that's I don't think we have a way to create an index.
Another question is, do you need SQLBase 11.7.1 for this to work?
I don't think we do. The connection string populates the database names by talking to 11.7 and querying it, and I don't think it can do that. I'm not sure it can do that with 11.6. I haven't not tested this with 11.6, but I think it'll work. The main thing is you need the 11.7 client components.
Yeah, there doesn't look like there are any more questions. Yeah, right, back to work then. Thank you, Dennis. That was a great presentation of the capabilities of the SQLBase DDEX driver. And thank you to all the attendees who joined early in the morning, late in the evening, wherever they are in the world. From tomorrow, this webinar will be available for viewing on YouTube. And thanks again for watching, and see you again soon in the webinar or at our developers conferences in October. Thank you and goodbye.